Hi there, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Let me take you straight into the storm. It started with a loud knock, not on my front door, but on my window. Second floor, 6:14 a.m. I opened the blinds, bleary-eyed, and saw a hotel bellhop staring up from the sidewalk, holding an envelope high over his head like some reverse Romeo. I opened the window. He shouted, "Room 167 says you'll want to see this." What? I don't know what compelled me. Maybe instinct, maybe dread, but I threw on a hoodie, sprinted downstairs barefoot, and met him on the sidewalk. He handed it over, gave a little bow, and walked away. Didn't wait for a tip. The envelope was unmarked except for my full name written in thick blue ink, her handwriting. Yvette's. My wife. Inside, hotel receipt. Room 167. 2 nights. Her name. And his. Also inside, divorce paperwork. Already signed. Notarized. Filed. No cover letter. No explanation. Just that. And then, not 30 seconds later, my phone exploded. 30 missed calls. All from her. The last voicemail chilled me to my spine. He wasn't supposed to send it yet. Please don't do anything stupid. At that point, I hadn't even had coffee. I had no clue what I was about to walk into. But I knew one thing. My marriage ended before I even woke up. I sat there at the kitchen counter, holding that envelope like it might catch fire if I blinked. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I couldn't even cry. It felt like my nervous system just stopped registering emotions. You know that feeling when your stomach drops on a roller coaster? Multiply that by 1,000, then stretch it across your entire body. I kept staring at her signature on the divorce papers. She had signed them with her full name, Yvette Morella Albright, like we weren't even married, like she was filling out a credit card application. I noticed a tiny heart next to the date. She always used to do that when she was excited about something. She did it on our wedding invitations. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely unlock my phone. I didn't know what I was expecting. An apology? A confession? A joke? I opened my voicemail. The first message was just breathing. The second was her voice, fast and desperate. Calden, please, please just wait. I didn't mean for it to come to you like that. He wasn't supposed to. I don't want this to be how you find out, okay? Just call me. Please. Click. The third voicemail. Silence again. But in the background, I could hear something. Movement. Voices. A hotel hallway. A vacuum. Then her whisper. He sent it. Oh my God. He actually sent it. Click. She didn't say his name. She didn't explain who he was, or why he had access to my full name, our address, and her divorce attorney's paperwork. All I knew was this. Someone else knew more about the end of my marriage than I did. And someone, that someone, had decided I deserved to wake up with a hotel envelope instead of a conversation. I walked upstairs in a daze, into our bedroom, and stared at the side of the bed she hadn't slept on in 2 nights. Her pillow still had the dent from her head. There was a single long hair on the pillowcase, red, hers. I don't know why that hit me harder than the divorce papers. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt erased. And then, I started getting messages. Not from her. From him. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't say sorry. He just sent one line. You deserve to know the truth. Hotel room 167. Ask for the folder in the nightstand. I swear, my soul left my body for a second. What folder? What truth? Who even was this guy? And why the hell was he treating my marriage like an escape room? I didn't go to the hotel right away. I just sat there for another half hour, holding my phone like it might explode again. That message, ask for the folder in the nightstand, kept looping in my head like some puzzle I didn't want to solve. What kind of person tells another man to dig through a hotel room for the truth? Who does that unless they want to break you? But eventually, curiosity won. I drove. I shouldn't have, honestly. My hands were still trembling. I probably ran 2 red lights and didn't even notice. I parked in front of the Meriton Suites like I belonged there, like I wasn't dying inside, and walked in with that awful envelope still stuffed into my hoodie pocket. The front desk didn't ask for ID. They just nodded, like they'd been told I was coming. Room 167. Second floor. End of the hall. I walked like I was underwater. When I opened the door, the air hit me first, cold, overly perfumed, like someone was trying to cover something up. The curtains were drawn. The bed was made. 2 made, like it hadn't been touched. I noticed 2 used glasses on the table, lipstick smudged on one, and a takeout container still warm. That's when I saw the nightstand. I opened the drawer, and there it was. A navy blue folder, thick and sealed with a red string. No name, no label, just waiting for me. Inside, a flash drive, a stack of color photographs. And, I swear I almost dropped it, a printed chat log. Pages and pages of messages between Yvette and him. Time-stamped. Dated. Screenshots of texts. Emails. Voice memos. Even booking confirmations for a trip to Paris in 2 months, under both their names. While we were still married. But that wasn't the worst part. The last few pages were instructions. Instructions for how to serve me. I was reading an operation. A playbook. He had written things like, Day 1, she texts. Day 2, I deliver. Then, have the desk staff ready. He'll be rattled, don't let him stay long. He had planned my reaction down to the minute. He even had notes like, he won't fight. He's soft. He'll freeze. He was right. I don't know how long I stood there. My heart was thudding in my ears. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this boiling silence inside me. Like the version of me who trusted her, who forgave her little lies, who folded her sweaters after she left, was dissolving. And then, a knock at the hotel door. I froze. Then a second knock. Louder. More deliberate. I knew before I opened it who it would be. But I opened it anyway. And there she was. I hadn't seen her in 2 days, but it felt like 2 years. And there she was, standing in the hallway of a hotel I didn't book, outside a room I was never meant to enter. She looked different. Not like she had changed physically, but like she had stepped out of the person I used to know. Her face was tense, pale, eyes glassy, like she hadn't slept. Her voice cracked before she even got out a full word. Calden. I told him not to. She stepped in before I could say anything, looking around the room like it might explode. I was still holding the folder. She saw it in my hands and went pale. I told him not to send it to you like this, she said, whispering, almost pleading. This wasn't how we were supposed to. I cut her off. Supposed to what? Ruin me quietly? She flinched. That felt good for half a second. Then the guilt came creeping back in like it always does with her. She walked over to the table and sat down without asking. Like it was still her space. Like I wasn't shattered and humiliated and holding physical evidence of how she'd orchestrated my collapse. I didn't want to lie anymore, she said, staring at the carpet. I just wanted out. But you never saw it. You never heard me when I told you I felt invisible. You thought folding my clothes was the same thing as love. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat locked up. She kept talking. He wanted me to serve you differently. More direct. I said no. I thought maybe if you just saw it all at once, maybe it'd be cleaner. Like ripping off a bandage. I looked at her, genuinely stunned. You think this was clean? She sighed like she was the one carrying the weight. You always expected me to be someone I wasn't. Quiet. Predictable. And I tried. I did. But I felt like a roommate for the past year. Like a ghost in my own house. He made me feel seen. There it was. The line. The cliché. He made me feel seen. Like I was blind. Like I hadn't tried. I pulled out the last photo in the folder. It wasn't one of the hotel room or some romantic dinner. It was of me, sitting on our porch 3 weeks ago. A long lens shot. Someone had been following me. Watching me. She turned pale when I held it up. You knew about this? I asked, voice barely steady. She didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. Then, finally, he just wanted to make sure you'd be okay. That you wouldn't do anything drastic. That was it. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty for being angry. For once in my life, I felt the burn rise in me. Not fear, not sadness, rage. Someone had photographed me like I was prey. Planned my heartbreak like a timeline. And the woman I built a life with, the one who promised no secrets, wasn't on it. I put the folder down gently. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just said, get out. She stared like she didn't hear me. So I repeated it. Louder. Clearer. I didn't care if the next room heard. Get out, Yvette. And for once, she listened. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. And I was alone, finally, but not free. Because that folder? It wasn't everything. It was just the beginning. I stayed in that hotel room for almost an hour after she left, just sitting in the silence she left behind. The air still smelled like her perfume, some lavender blend I used to love. Now it made me sick. The folder was back on the table, closed, but it felt like it was staring at me. Like it knew I hadn't seen the worst part yet. I took out the flash drive. No label. Just plain silver. I didn't want to plug it in. I didn't want to know more, but I also couldn't pretend there wasn't more. Back home, I slid it into my laptop. It auto-opened. There was one folder. No password. Named insurance. Inside, 3 video files. Each one was timestamped. All from the same day, 2 weeks ago. The camera angle? A ceiling-mounted hotel security cam. Room 167. I pressed play on the first. It was her. Yvette. Sitting on the bed. Waiting. Fixing her hair. 30 seconds in, he walks in. I recognized him immediately. From her tagged photos. From the chat logs. From the name on the Paris booking. He kisses her. She laughs. The second video shows them talking. Nothing explicit, nothing sexual, but it's more than enough. The way they sit together, lean into each other, touch each other like they've done it 100 times, that was worse than any bedroom scene. But the third video, that one was different. They weren't alone. There was a man in a blazer sitting in the corner. Middle-aged, bald, holding a laptop, watching them. He wasn't part of the relationship. He was documenting it, taking notes. And when Yvette walked out of the frame, to the bathroom, maybe, that man looked directly into the camera, like he knew I'd be watching this one day. I paused the video right there, screenshot his face. And in that moment, something in me flipped. This wasn't just an affair. This was planned, staged, controlled. And whoever that man was, he wasn't just an observer. He was orchestrating everything. I stared at the paused frame for maybe 10 straight minutes. The bald man in the blazer, the one sitting silently in the corner of room 167, watching everything like a scientist observing lab rats, had a face I couldn't shake. Something about him felt practiced, cold, like he was used to being ignored until it was too late. And that's what scared me. This wasn't just some guy tagging along for drama. He had a laptop. He was taking notes. He was sitting comfortably in the background while my wife cheated on me in high definition. That wasn't casual. That was deliberate. I reverse image searched the screenshot. Nothing. Ran it through some online facial recognition tools. Still nothing. Whoever this man was, he didn't exist publicly. No LinkedIn. No alumni pages. No news photos. But he looked so familiar, like someone you'd see in a training video, or silently observing in a courtroom, or at a funeral, maybe. I couldn't place it. But I knew this. He was connected to all of this. Maybe even more than Yvette was. The next morning, I got an email. No subject line. No text. Just an attachment. It was a zip file. I scanned it for viruses. Nothing flagged. Against every instinct I had, I opened it. Inside, a single PDF, titled, Case File 167_C. And at the top, Client, Yvette Morella Albright. Program Tier, Silver. Handler, D. I read the first few lines and thought maybe it was a prank. Some sick LARP document. But the deeper I went, the more real it got. The file described me in terrifying detail, my routines, medical history, online behavior, even my grocery receipts. It mentioned the exact brand of shampoo I used. It referenced my father's death 2 years ago, things Yvette never could have known on her own. It was a profile, a psychological map of who I was, what I'd tolerate, what I wouldn't. Under projected emotional tolerance, it listed passive avoidant reaction, high. Risk of physical retaliation, low. Probability of submission to outcome, 87%. 87%. They had calculated that I would roll over, that I wouldn't fight, that I'd just vanish quietly, like I was a math problem. I scrolled further. There were labeled intervention phases, like my divorce had been part of some managed process. Phase 1, emotional isolation. Phase 2, primary separation. Phase 3, direct deployment. Phase 4, and this part was blacked out. Not blurred. Blacked out. Redacted. And then I saw something that stopped my breath. Subject unaware of trial framework designation. Handler discretion required pending stage for variables. Trial framework? Handler? Stage 4. I closed the file. My skin was cold. My hands were shaking again, but not from heartbreak this time, from adrenaline. I wasn't looking at evidence of cheating anymore. This was something else entirely. This was engineered. My marriage hadn't failed. It had been run like a test. And I wasn't just the husband. I was the experiment. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was sad. Not because I missed her. That part of me had been burned out already. What kept me awake was something colder, something unfamiliar, a sharp, clinical kind of fear. The kind that tells you, you're being watched, and you always were. The PDF didn't leave my screen for hours. I kept scrolling back to those two lines: trial framework designation and handler discretion required. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Trial? Like I was part of some controlled test? Was Yvette a participant? A plant? Or had she signed up for this on purpose? I couldn't sit with the questions anymore. I had to do something. I remembered the email, the one with no subject line. I checked the source data. The address was encrypted, but the server pinged back to a small domain registered in Denmark. That didn't help much. But then I noticed something odd. There was a tracking pixel embedded in the email, a tiny invisible marker that let the sender know when I opened it. Meaning, the second I read that PDF, they knew. I wasn't reacting in secret. I was still inside their design. That's when I made a decision. I packed a bag, drove to a friend's cabin about 3 hours outside the city, no Wi-Fi, no cell reception. I needed a place where no one could monitor me. Or so I hoped. I brought the flash drive, my laptop, and the folder. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. 2 days passed. Nothing. No calls. No emails. Then, on the third morning, a note appeared on the cabin's front porch. Just a piece of paper. No envelope. Folded once. Printed in the same typeface as the PDF. It said, "You left the framework. Stage 4 will now adjust accordingly." That was it. No signature. No name. No instructions. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told anyone I was there. The only person who knew the cabin existed was an old friend from college, someone I hadn't even spoken to in a year. And yet here was a note, delivered without a sound, warning me that I had broken the boundaries of some invisible game. That's when I realized something. They didn't need Yvette anymore. They didn't even need to follow me physically, because the experiment hadn't ended. It had evolved. I wasn't watching it unfold anymore. It was watching me. I didn't leave the cabin for another day. I barely slept. Every sound outside made me flinch. But something shifted after that note. Not just fear, but defiance. If this was some test, some twisted psychological program designed to observe my collapse, then maybe the only way to win was to not collapse. To stop reacting. To stop giving them the results they were calculating for. The morning after the note, I burned the folder. Every page. Watched the ashes curl in the fire pit outside. Then I shattered the flash drive with a hammer. Did it change anything? Maybe not. Maybe they had backups. But it felt like taking something back. Like reclaiming my narrative, one piece at a time. And then, I disappeared. Not literally. I didn't fake my death or vanish into the forest. I just stepped out of the frame. I closed my accounts. I quit my job. Moved to a town so small it barely had cell service. Rented a place under a different variation of my name. Called and became CL. And for a while, I lived slow. I read books. I cooked my own food. I walked without looking over my shoulder. The world didn't end. There were no more notes. No emails. No handlers. And one day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single card. Typed across the middle, it said, "Subject did not conform. Trial marked incomplete." I laughed out loud. It was over. Or maybe, I had ended it. Somewhere in the shadows, a group of people might still be running simulations on other poor souls. Maybe some of them are watching this right now. Maybe you're part of something you don't even realize yet. But for me, I'm free. Yvette. She tried reaching out once. No apology. Just a weird, vague message. "I think they're done watching now." I didn't answer. Because I don't need closure from people who handed my life over to strangers. I already have it. I rebuilt myself. I'm not whole, but I'm awake. And I'm sharing this not for sympathy, not for revenge, but because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not broken for falling apart when everything you knew turned out to be fake. You're just waking up from something you didn't know you were in. Now it's your turn. If you've ever felt like your life was being manipulated behind the scenes, tell us. Was there a moment you realized something wasn't right, but you couldn't explain it? Leave a comment below. I'll be reading every single one.